I moved the table a bit so the light shines differently. I hope that's cool. I'm gonna take my, been wearing them all day. Today was funny, but it's one of those days where you kind of come out, ah, I'm back. It's one of those days where you kind of come out aggressive. So, best way I could explain what's going on right now is I'm regaining myself. And beautiful pen that I got yesterday and I lost it. But what is the sense of self? So here, there's a story that I want to talk about. It was in 2019, 2018. By 2018, I started reading a lot more. I remember there's a friend of mine, and I mentioned I liked anime and Japanese culture. So what she did is she got me a book, and that book was called Kafka on the Shore.
Kafka on the shore. I'm not gonna lie, man. I literally went out, had dinner, had some drinks. Was supposed to meet somebody and they actually called on time. So I expect people normally to be late or flaky. But alright. So back when I started reading, I realized there's something that's missing with how I interacted with the world. And that was practically just empathy. I lacked empathy. At some point in my life, a person I knew died, and I think from there I kind of stopped processing emotions, or didn't kind of quite understand how people process their own I don't know. It's like sometimes you're talking to people and you're looking at what they're doing, and you kind of they don't synchronize. So for me, I stopped understanding what's going on, and I very much started kind of involving myself in only my own bubble. It's funny when people say that because, I don't know, I never understood that. I thought I was looking at the world the way the world is. Probably was the truth, but that was my reality. There was a lot more that I just couldn't see beyond what the world is. And mainly because I wasn't allowing myself to get involved in them. This is not really an emotional talk, but more an observation of a state of mind that I tried to create. So I think at those years I looked at myself and I was like, maybe Tari, in order to understand people, because I've been for 10, 15 years, I had not been able to kind of it was something holding me back. There was something off. And so that book that my friend kind of got me, I don't want to say opened something up in me, but was written in a way that kind of drove me to just feel stuff, right? Have my, there's a lot of tension in it, and have my emotions rattled, and just was very much a consistent engagement with things that are happening left and right. And I remember it was surreal, magical realism. And he was one chapter about something and one chapter about something completely different, and then eventually these two things kind of start meeting, until by the end of it they kind of become the ending of the story. I don't know if it's written brilliantly, or if the guy was kind of psychotic, something's off. But I appreciate it a lot because it made me feel some stuff, and for the first time I was able to kind of because he was narrating in the book, I was able to kind of see what other people were thinking in certain situations and certain experiences. So from there, I started reading more. And the more I read, the more philosophy I got into, the more I started engaging with different trains of thought. And at one point, I remember the one thing that got my attention the most was Carl Jung. And I decided because of him to learn empathy, or at the very least, start imagining what empathy would look like and start kind of engaging towards it. And so actively, oh shit, I didn't put my earphones on. It's fine. I think that would work. So effectively, what I did was I started trying to understand what empathy is about and how to deal with it. but empathy kind of like makes you vulnerable. Why? Because you open up and you want to listen to people and you want to understand their situation and you want to be engaged with them. And not knowing how to kind of be empathetic, but to kind of go back to the original state, maybe allowed me to explore a bit more than I thought I would have wanted, and just lose a bit of myself or lose track of myself. So, I mean, at one point I was like, what am I doing? This is not fun anymore. And I felt like the anxiety of people would always like kind of like jump on me. And I don't know if that was the global vibe at that point, or it was just like when Corona hit, I was a bit more like, okay, so everyone was, how can I be empathetic when everyone's kind of like expressing the same feeling and emotion? And from there, I realized that I was always too involved in how other people are seeing the world that I kind of like need to start establishing how I see it in order for any form of conversation with others to make sense. But it did develop a keen sense of interest in people from me. Before, I never was interested. And from there, I was able to start looking at society differently because I was very much aggressively rejecting society. And from there, I was able to like want to interact, realize how I would want to interact with society, what are the things I would want to be engaged with, and kind of like it allowed me to trust the emotions that I have towards certain things. Mainly because I noticed how I don't really I emotionally approach stuff, but I rationalize my emotions, and instead of accepting the fact that like I'm being emotional, I tend to always kind of want to prove to myself why whatever I'm doing is not really something that is making out, that working or something like I don't know. So empathy and the concept behind it is to be able to like understand and feel what other people are feeling, to see where they're coming from, to put yourself in your shoes, to think what they're thinking, just to allow whatever's happening in front of you to be something that's legitimate and try to understand its legitimacy. At least that's how I understood it. And to be able to do that opened up a lot of vulnerability with me. It really did make me feel like I wasn't myself at one point. And that's the thing, when people, you kind of like open yourself up to people, you expose yourself. And I felt like for the longest years, I wasn't able to like open up to myself because I don't know if I was protecting me, that's the right thing to say, or I was afraid of the outside world kind of like interfering. Right? So both of them mean the same thing. But one is kind of me standing strong towards myself, while the other one kind of like cowering in fear. But both of them mean the same thing. And I didn't even have to decide any one of them. Because when the time came and I was like, I'm done, just I had exposed myself too much, or I had felt beyond vulnerable to the exposure that I placed in my life. Because without consistently pivoting back to how I am and reflecting, what effectively I was doing was I was like trusting life's flow. And it's beautiful because like if you're doing good and you're trusting life's flow, that means you've established something and you move on. But if you haven't established anything, or you have what you've established this week, then naturally the flow of life is going to like crumble everything you've built. And it's funny because that's how the storyline kind of like initially started. And I wouldn't say it's my road to awakening or something or understanding, but my own exposure to the truth behind my reality started happening as a gift from a friend of mine, because she gave me that book, which made me want to read more and more and more and more and more. But mainly because I kind of like started wanting to engage with life differently. And the way I decided to start engaging with life is through the people that surround me and trying to understand them better. And I'm grateful for that. I'm actually very happy. They weren't the best of my days. And it's funny because like they were the best of my days. There were days where I was laughing when everything wasn't really going great. They were the days where I was like struggling from morning till night, but I enjoyed like every single minute I spent with friends and family. They were the days when my frustrations were just always prevalent with me, but I couldn't see how the people around me were around me because they cared about me and because they actually wanted me to do good and be good. It was fun. I miss them. I don't miss those days per se, but I miss the people that I cared about and that were surrounding me those days. And I'm grateful for the fact that I was able to like explore the world differently through their eyes. And when the time came, I was able to like kind of realize how far gone I have been because I haven't been able to like look at life subjectively, subjectively for over 15, 18 years. And when change has to happen, change has to happen. And voila, the ending of this video was literally the start of why I am where I am right now. Empathy. Thank you guys.